Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to FOBtv, the future of business. It is here where we're exploring the forces shaping tomorrow. I'm your host, Kevin Benedict. I'm a futurist, book author, and lecturer here at TCS. And I want to thank all of you for joining us today. Now, today, our guest is the renowned technology historian and thought leader, podcaster and author, submariner, and IDC Research Director, Rob Tiffany. Thanks for joining us, Rob.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Now, we're getting Rob straight off a vacation. So, all the walls are going to come down. He's been drinking for 2 straight weeks. Oh, no. Okay. Oh.
Okay, maybe. Yeah. Okay. Maybe a little.
He's joining us fresh from his healthy vacation.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. It's so good to be here, man. It's good to be here with you, Kevin. This is always good to talk.
Yes,
absolutely.
It is. And there's a lot to talk about today.
There is a lot I just love how you call me a technology historian. It just kind of happens, doesn't it?
Yes. I mean, you were there when Microsoft did all the cool stuff, and you have stories about all of it. And what was it? If you check our YouTube channel where you find this, you will see Rob Tiffany. Just do a search on Rob Tiffany, and you'll see interviews over the years. And he covers the history of technology very well in many of those. So thank you for doing that. That's
maybe I could teach a college class on that or something.
You could. You absolutely
yes.
could.
We could not find Gary Kildall anywhere because we wanted to buy CPM, and so then we talked to that Bill Gates guy instead. And those things happen, right?
There you go. So
absolutely.
Where are you calling in from today, Rob?
I'm calling in from Houston, Texas.
Houston? Is that where you vacationed, or is that where you live?
No, that's where I live. That's where I live now. You're right. Obviously, I've spent the last several decades in the Pacific Northwest near Redmond, Washington.
Yeah.
And doing the Microsoft thing and all those other deals.
Yeah.
But back in Texas, I grew up down here. Yeah. And our family has a ranch here in Texas. And so am I technically a cowboy? Maybe.
Yeah. A technology cowboy.
A technology cowboy. Ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. It. Yes. But I have lots of people go, so you moved to Houston on purpose?
Especially this time of year, right?
Surely you were transferred by your company. Oh, no, I'm not that bright, actually. We decided, yes. We love the heat and humidity. Yeah.
So give us an adventure that you've had so far this summer.
All right. I'll tell you. Last couple of weeks, I was, in Portland, Walla Walla, Washington, Bend, Oregon, Lake Chelan in Washington, back in Seattle, back in Portland. And so the most notable thing, and it's kind of apropos to this book, because I'm like one of those last weirdos out there trying to save the planet with some technology that you and I know about. And there I am at Lake Chelan this last week, and there are fires all around us. And if you ever wondered if all the stuff I'm talking about is real or just, made up, and watching, this beautiful lake, everybody in Washington State loves to go there in the summertime, boating and all that. And what you really see is not only the helicopters with the big scoops on them coming in, scooping up lake water and dumping it on the hills that are all burning everywhere. I had not seen the planes, and the planes didn't have any kind of scoop thing hanging down. It was like somehow part of the plane. The plane looked like it was almost landing on the water, and then it had some intake to suck in the water, and then it would take off again. It was like that almost 24/7, just rotation. Those firefighters are awesome. And I know they lost like 100 different buildings and stuff like that. Someone died. I mean, it was weird. You're there for 4th of July, fireworks at the lake.
Oh man.
And there's fires all around you. And so it was a surreal deal. And I actually finished the last final touches of the book there, actually. But that was certainly not expected. It was definitely an adventure for sure.
Oh yeah. And just coincidentally, the foothills right above our house here are on fire too. And those same planes were scooping from the lakes around here too.
Yeah.
Dropping their water on them, and the helicopters are buzzing. So we've got the same kind of look right here above Boise right now.
Yes. When did we start having fire season?
Well, you know what? Coincidentally, again, this was July 5, the day after 4th of July, when the fire started.
Yeah.
I wonder if fireworks had something to do with it.
Maybe. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. I remember in the old days, and not that long ago, summer happened, whatever. But then I'd say, I don't know, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, all of a sudden there were just wildfires all over the Western United States every summer. And up in British Columbia and stuff like that. And people are talking about smoke in major cities. And remember all that? And
if only had some kind of IoT solutions that could help us.
If we could just find something to nip it in the bud,
or if we had a book that would give us examples of what we could do.
Yes. If only.
We'll come back to that. But before we do, Rob, let me just ask you. So you work at IDC as a research director. What are you covering right now?
So I cover cloud and data center infrastructure is what is my area. And so I got a couple of different businesses within that, cloud adoption trends, things like that. What are people doing? What are the big customers doing? Why are they moving to there? I do a survey called Cloud Pulse that I do quarterly. Most big surveys from firms are once a year. So I literally every quarter I'm creating a new survey to get the pulse of the voice of the customers. And so it's about 1,600 respondents, and it goes out all over the world, every region. And I'm asking questions. Some are boilerplate around cloud stuff. In other words, like you can imagine my Q1 this year, just super deep on AI. What are people doing with it? How much, what are they spending on? That kind of stuff. Not sustainability, kind of reliability. Like in Q2, a new level. We've got this little Middle East war going on. And for the first time ever, we saw some missiles or drones as data centers. And I'm sure cloud architects had not planned for missile attacks.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
When they were trying to, right. So the architecture. And so I was inspired to go a lot deeper and a lot more hardcore, asking customers about, now that this has happened, are you rethinking about, survivability, uptime, all the things we think about when you're building a technical solution in a cloud or otherwise. And so, anyway, once a quarter, you get all this people coming back. And then we have the biggest cloud hyperscalers are the main customers for this because it helps drive their roadmaps, right? So it's good data for their product managers to see because they really get an unbiased view from customers, because when you're the company that makes the product and you say, hey, tell us, it seems kind of self-serving, right?
Hey, so let me just ask you a follow-up question for those of us who don't live in your space. How has AI impacted that space? Other than missiles and things like that. How has AI changed what you guys do?
When I think about, there's broader how it's changed IDC, but if I think about me doing cloud and data center infrastructure. It's the most unprecedented level of infrastructure spend in the history of computing all time, by far. Not even close. Nothing comes in a close second. You see it. The amount of money being spent on data centers all over the place, so it started with the hyperscaler clouds hosting a lot of this stuff. And obviously they had the most money and they bought the most GPUs from our friend Jensen over at NVIDIA. Then you saw the rise of these neo clouds, these dedicated data centers packed full of GPUs. Their only focus is AI. You started seeing stuff on TV. There's so much now it's getting geopolitical on us. With the growth of data centers, it probably started, they started building this Stargate data center outside of Abilene, Texas, and more of that. Then you started to get some blowback from local communities like, hey, I'm turning on my water and nothing's coming out, or my electricity bill is skyrocketing, things like that. And I know that the people, there's this view around AI that we've got to meet the moment. And these companies are like, they're spending all their money. In fact, you're starting to see the wealthiest companies on the planet starting to have negative cash flow right now, for real. And it's because they're going all in. All their chips are in on this AI thing. They don't want to miss it. And so it's a huge risk that they're all taking. And you know how things are. Not everybody wins, right? And then probably something they didn't see. There's this view that we're going to just tile the planet Earth with data centers. Or you hear people talking about, Elon's going to put data centers in space. And I've written tons of papers in the past on doing data centers under the ocean because it's kind of cold there. And it turns out the internet is on the sea floor. But yeah. And so, but now you've got local municipalities, city councils of small communities pushing back hard on this kind of stuff. And they're starting to say no. So any kind of forecasting that we think's going on, who knows if we have to cut that in half because lots of individual groups are pushing back on that. In fact, does anyone remember Aaron Brockovich?
Yeah.
Remember they made a movie about her?
I saw a headline that she was jumping in with an opinion.
She's all in. She's all in with this stuff. And so it's a powerful thing. And so some of it started, you can go find some YouTube videos, when Elon just started to build a Colossus. Was that in Tennessee or Kentucky? Anyway, the early days, you talk to the city council and the people, and they're like, yes, jobs. It's going to be great. Our little town that's going nowhere now, it's going to be big time. And so they go there.
Nobody works there.
Nobody works there. A lot of jobs temporarily, construction jobs, right? Yeah. And then just a handful of people to run the thing. But then in an Aaron Brockovich style, all of a sudden people are like, I noticed that it's just loud outside, like within a 5-mile radius, 24/7. If any of you have ever been inside a data center, it's really loud. All the fans from all the servers like going crazy. It's super loud. All these people are saying it's loud all the time. We can't sleep. And what's that weird smell of methane and other stuff? And so that's happening. And so now you have someone like Aaron Brockovich jumping in, and this is going to be a thing for sure. And it might screw up the plans of a lot of the most powerful companies in the world. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out.
Fascinating time that we live in.
Yeah.
And then, we're just barely starting to scratch the second and third order effects of these things as well. I see companies you would never expect having their stock skyrocket, like Caterpillar, because they make generators for data centers. And people are like, what? The bulldozer manufacturer? Yeah, they're big into AI. And then Nokia, our friend from the, from mobile, from the world and mobile
What's
phones.
Going on with Nokia?
Yeah, some of our favorite handsets of ancient times, but now they're being a big AI kind of infrastructure provider.
Wow. And of course, more notably in your neighborhood in Boise, you've got Micron just like a rocket ship, because we now have scarcity. Yeah. And obviously, when you live in a capitalist society, scarcity and abundance and things drives pricing and stuff like that. And so basically, all the hyperscalers and all the other big players have locked up the supply chains of RAM. Obviously most people just think of GPUs, NVIDIA, and, with Jensen and AMD with Dr. Lisa Su and those kind of things. And so all of a sudden RAM became scarce. And now I hear storage, high-speed storage, anything that plays a role, to your point, like Caterpillar, anything that plays a role in that value chain, scarcity is happening. And so the negative impact on that is your ability to have a reasonable price for like a new PC or a smartphone or anything that uses memory and stuff like that. You saw Tim Cook come out from Apple saying, well, we don't have any choice. We have to raise the prices on all our stuff.
Suddenly you're going, now, wait a minute. The billion and trillionaires are getting richer, and our prices as consumers are just going up.
Yeah.
That is a transfer of wealth never seen before on this planet.
It is. Yeah. No, it's crazy. And so now lots of people love to compare this to the .com thing that you and I lived through. Yeah. And a lot of money was spent and it didn't work out for everybody. But then there's that other part to that story that says, well, the .com crash happened, but then we ended up using all the stuff eventually and it made the internet what it is and all that kind of stuff. And so one of the best examples was fiber optic cable. Massive amounts of fiber were laid everywhere for this new high-speed internet thing that was going to happen in the late 90s. And then everybody went out of business, or not everybody, but a lot of people did. And you had all this dark fiber everywhere unused. Yeah. But eventually it got used. It took some time, but it got used. And so people are like trying to equate, we're going to build all these data centers. Not everybody who's doing this is going to make it. Is that equivalent to fiber? I don't know, because they need a lot of energy and water and a lot of other stuff. And so we could have all these ghost town data centers all over the planet. I don't know. I hope it doesn't work out that way.
To your point, I just got fiber optic in our family cabin way up in the woods.
Whoa.
I mean, when we bought that, we didn't even have mobile phone coverage up there.
Right.
And now
smoke signals.
Yes. Now we have fiber optic to the cabin.
That's huge.
I know, man.
You're from the future. That's amazing. Fiber optic to the cabin. Remember how people talked about when they talked about fiber to the home, when that seemed like really far-fetched, and they're like, that'll never happen here. It's too expensive. Maybe fiber to the neighborhood and then cable or something else, but it's real. And you're making it real. Fiber to the cabin.
I mean, that sounds like a book, fiber optic to the cabin.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
And on the topic of book, you see a segue there?
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, topic of books. Let's hear about your new book.
Right.
The Earth with the Internet of Things. Now, when you first read that, you're like, haven't we been talking about that for a while?
Yeah, we have.
Talk to us about your book. I'd love to hear more.
Yeah. Well, there is this thing that started in 2015. The book is really about the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And so back in 2015, all the countries got together and agreed that they were going to go do this 15-year plan to tackle all these different goals. Obviously climate change gets most of the headlines, but stuff like hunger and health and clean water, life on land, life below water, sustainable cities, not just smart. So lots of stuff. There's 17 of them. And that came out and there's a lot of excitement going around that. And I don't know that we're making good progress on that. So basically, all of these things were supposed to be solved by 2030. And so when I heard about that, I was like, well, that's really cool. And I remember, I was doing all this IoT stuff and you're doing use cases. What kind of things can you do? And it was a lot really doubled down. Remember when I was at Ericsson and I did a bunch of agriculture stuff. And so I'm in Eastern Washington and I'm doing IoT in apple orchards and hops farms and places like that, and soil moisture and nutrients, and getting all this data back to help improve yields and all that fun stuff and save water and not have fertilizer runoff going into rivers. So I was like, oh, that's cool. And I started putting together those sustainable development goals and what I was doing there and going, what are all the use cases that can fit in these other categories, like life on land, protecting biodiversity or endangered species, what are the things I can do, sustainable infrastructure. There's so many. And so I started speaking on this and started doing keynote addresses. And I've got all these PowerPoints where I would talk through all that kind of stuff. Obviously zero hunger and poverty usually tie in tightly with a lot of the agriculture stuff. And so started speaking a lot of that, tons of decks laying around, so much information. And I remember I just kept like, I got to put all this stuff into a book. And so me being the lazy writer that I am, because it's been 6 years in the making, I finally got it together. And the book, I think of it more as a handbook. It is giant. It's hardcover, 500 pages, 8.5 by 11. So
8.5 by 11?
Yes, I know. Ouch. Yes.
How much does it weigh?
35 pounds. No, I don't. But it costs a lot to print, which is the downside.
Yeah.
As you might imagine. So, but you know what? To have a big book, I really had to do hardcover just to hold it together, because paperback at that thickness it might fall apart. And I'll follow it up, all the Kindle version and all that kind of stuff. And so the book is me not only piecing together, and so as you can imagine, each chapter is about a particular sustainable development goal. And within that chapter are the appropriate use cases that make sense for that. And I didn't do all 17 because not all of them make sense, for this stuff. I don't want to square a peg in a round hole. Yeah. And so,
child trafficking and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Not direct.
Right. Absolutely. So, what is IoT about? It's measuring stuff. Mm-hmm. It's KPIs. It's taking actions on insights. And so what's measurable out in the world where we can get early warning or predictive stuff like that. And so I started piecing that together. Chapter 1 is your typical kickoff chapter, like any book. This is what it's all about. Here's what we care about. I do a preface where I kind of talk about when I got started with IoT back in the early 90s. And then I've got a great foreword written by Tom Raftery. He's a great climate guy and has a great podcast called Climate Confident. Great quotes and blurbs from people like you and other rock stars like, Vint Cerf, the inventor of the internet, Ray Ozzie. You wouldn't believe the people. A lot of people more people were passionate about this. And a lot of the quotes I got back were, wow, you didn't write a book about theory or concepts or whatever. You wrote an actionable book. Like, I'm going to put this in your hands and you're going to go do the thing. Yeah. And so when I watched that cool video that they made for the United Nations with all these movie stars and stuff about how we're going to solve it, I was like, I wrote this book to do that. Yes. And that's the problem. That's the problem. Unfortunately, people assume someone else is going to take care of something, and it doesn't get taken care of. And so this book teaches you how to go do it. And so as you can imagine, when you go through each chapter, I think of it in patterns. I was like, you know what? I'm not going to make people do any kind of crazy AI or stuff like that. It's got to be simple. And so for every use case, it's basically what sensors do I need to use to measure something in the real world?
Yep.
What device am I going to use that those sensors will connect to? Is it some microcontroller or is it a Raspberry Pi? What kind of power do I need? Is it battery or solar, or do I plug it into a wall? What kind of enclosure do I need? Is it IP, different types of, for weather and stuff like that? What kind of communications do I need? Is it Wi-Fi in a building? Is it LoRaWAN? Is it cellular? I go through all that stuff. What IoT platform? And in this one, a long time ago, we talked about when I started doing that Moab Foundation, I built all these IoT stuff to give away. And my original vision back then was, I'm going to give you this open source technology and I'm going to give you the handbook and I'm going to give it to NGOs or people to go fix all these problems. I decided, even though I have this technology, I was like, I'm not going to push that. So I don't play favorites. I list all of the big IoT platforms out there because all of them will work just fine. I talk about all the different players for devices, Arduino, Raspberry Pi, ESP32. I talk about all the different players in the communications, MVNOs, different cellular players, all that stuff. And so I actually give love to everyone. If their stuff will work, fine. Because, none of this is rocket science at all. I do the analytics part of it is just stupid green, yellow, red KPIs. And so I talk about how the analytics work there. And I love to, people go, oh, you're not doing some kind of deep ML thing, or you're not doing whatever. And it's like, we got to the moon on KPIs.
Yes.
We have nuclear submarines. When they say, all right, we've got green lights on the board, or you're watching a movie about Apollo, all right, Capcom, and they're going from each guy. We're going, those are all just green or yellow or red.
Yeah.
Green is good. We don't have to do anything. Yellow, caution light. We're heading in the wrong direction. Red, something's bad.
Yeah.
That's what we did when I started IoT in the early 90s with real-time data with the vending machines. Green meant, hey, fully stocked vending machine. Yellow, oh, we're getting low on inventory. Red, you're out of inventory. Go fill it.
Yeah.
And so keeping it simple, the whole book works that way. And so I have 100 use cases.
Oh.
This is part 100. That's part of why the book took so long, is coming up with 100 use cases across, I do 11 out of the 17 goals. And so I go into great detail. Here's how to do it. I got a little flashcard, start graphics, and then all the verbiage, this device, this sensor, here's the outcome. Here's how it works.
Has that ever been done before?
I don't think so. I don't know for sure. It may be done in little bits. I know people will write about, oh, this is a great use case. Here's it's a how-to.
Yeah.
But I've never seen anybody be crazy enough to take on 100 different use cases in a how-to book. Everybody I've talked to in the IoT space, all my colleagues, people I know, they say I've never seen anything like this. That's actionable.
So cool. Hey, so in preparation for our podcast show today, we were exchanging messages and you share that you believe this is the most important book you've ever written. Tell us about that.
Sometimes you talk about doing something that's bigger than yourself.
Yeah.
Like a really big thing. Like, what's the big thing you did in your life? We got all kinds of problems around this world, and living in this technology world, we're up on stage talking about the tech and here's how the tech works. And isn't this cool and everything like that? And I was like, oh my God, we've got species going extinct. We've got sea level rise. It's getting hot everywhere. We've got fires in the place, fires. There are so many problems. We have so many people in abject poverty. We have so many kids starving around the world. All this stuff that people day to day don't think about, or they think someone else is handling it. And so I was like, I'm going to try to handle it, at least in my world of what it's not obviously. Yeah, in my niche, what can my niche do to take on the biggest societal problems in the whole world? Wow. And so I was like, that's why, it took a while to get it done. But that's why it's the most important. I've written lots of books about tech or about whatever, and that's great. You learned about how to do something with a pocket PC back in 2000.
Hey, that paid the bills.
It paid the bills to get to where we are today, right?
Yes.
Absolutely. But when I build something that's actually, and it's even hard to talk about. It sounds so grandiose. Like, I'm going to show you how to save the planet.
Not to me.
Clean water, early warning on floods, measuring the thickness of ice sheets, of glaciers, measuring, sea level rise, mangroves, I mean, there's so much stuff in there. It's insane. And yet each one is dumbed down, simple, simple, simple. Anybody has to be able to pick this book up and do it. You don't have to be a techie, brain surgeon. It's designed to give it to people and go do good in the world. And that's what I wanted to do.
So if a reporter came up to you, Rob, and put the microphone up there and said, Rob, what challenge is out there that you're trying to solve with this book? How would you answer that?
Gosh, it's hard because I tackle 100 challenges.
Yeah.
Or,
okay.
I do. Yeah. And so, it's kind of nuts. And some of these challenges you've heard of, and some of these use cases we've talked about before already. I just wanted to get them all on paper, like all the time I spend in agriculture, which is directly related to poverty and hunger. People don't realize that half of produce is lost after harvest, just lost, gone, the supply chain, As we're approaching, 9 to 10 billion people by 2050, we don't have enough food to feed everybody, and we're losing all our food and stuff like that. How many times IoT, we've talked about, people love to talk about cold chain.
Yeah.
I talk about a very comprehensive cold chain that starts right after the stuff's harvested, going into cold storage, getting into the 18-wheeler, going to the intermediate, distribution center, ultimately getting to a restaurant or a grocery store, and then how it's taken care of there. That whole chain, that's a supply chain, and it's a giant cold chain. People don't have any idea why that's so important. But the reality is it's slim pickings as it is with food and water. And so I want to make sure that so someone could, and it's not that people aren't doing pieces of this, because they are. Yeah. They are. But the whole thing, fresh water. We have so little fresh water. I know people say, no, we've had the same amount of water today that we did a million years ago. Yeah, but getting fresh water is getting harder and harder to come by. And so I talk about how we can help with that kind of stuff like that. People need to drink and eat and do. I talk education. Who would have thought that IoT has anything to do with education? Quality education is one of the use cases of the categories. I just talk about conditions to make sure that people can get their education, where you can't do things directly. I do things around the edges to make sure that kids can get in there and learn things. There's so much. There's just so much. Yeah, it would take forever. Life on land, poaching, endangered species. What am I doing for that? Something you've heard of. Oh, I'm doing gunshot detection in the Amazon or whatever in a certain area. And I fenced it. All the technology we learned back in our mobile days and stuff like that. It's just piecing together a lot of stuff we do that we know about so that we go, someone's trying to, shoot an endangered species. Or similarly, if I'm in the Amazon or wherever and I'm listening for a chainsaw, someone's is deforesting. And at the same time, I'm measuring reforestations and stuff like that. And so, it's all over the life underwater measuring,
This is awesome.
I'm rambling, aren't
I? No, this is brilliant. And this, I can imagine having that all together in one spot is just magnificent. Thanks for going through that work.
Yeah. My hope is it becomes a big thing, and not because I want it to be a big thing like anybody that does something. If I wrote this book and it just sits on a shelf and no one hears about it or no one ever does anything with it, then it hasn't served its purpose. I need to find a way for the world to find out. I mean, this is like a gift to the world, is what this book is, to solve all the hardest problems in all of society. And so it can't be invisible. People have got to find out about this. Organizations, the United Nations, everybody, NGOs all over the world, businesses who want to do the right thing, right? Students. So also, it's a textbook.
Oh, let's do it.
It's a textbook. I know you're a lecturer. I'm an adjunct lecturer at the Naval Postgraduate School. And I also remember I did a bunch of stuff for some MBA programs at the University of Texas.
Yeah.
And I remember the college professors like, well, Rob, if you put questions at the end of each chapter and you've got answers and stuff to help, then it can become a textbook for college students. We can create courseware for this. Yeah. And so it has that. Every single chapter has a knowledge check, 10 questions from there. And then, the back, for the professor to use for getting that right and stuff like that. And so that's in there. The jaded part of me thinks our generation, we just didn't get it done. We know about these problems. We talked about it and we just didn't get it done. And maybe this book is for the kids. Maybe it's for a younger generation. Maybe Gen Z is going to go save the planet because we didn't do it. Which I know that sounds kind of depressing.
No, in our human life, we think myopically in that we live our 80 years, and that's the whole world is 80 years. But in the grand scheme of things, if we can move the needle a little bit over centuries, that could be huge, right?
You're right. You always hear people say, I want to leave my planet or my whatever better than how I found it, that kind of thing. But you're right. Most people don't do it. People are living their life.
They just take a little step and others will build on that step.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. So this is that kind of thing. It's like, here's this thing to make the world, because you're right. You and I are going to be here forever.
You wrote the book and got it together. Somebody else will read it and build it, right?
Someone else is going to do it. Now, you said something that hits into the book. You talked about people being myopic. At some point, it was close to the end, I thought I was done with the book and I was having conversations, and it's like, there's a whole lot of people that really just don't care. And how are you going to get people who are like, self-interested? Most people are actually self-interested. They're just living their lives. How are you going to get them to care? Oh, show me the money. And so that's a reality. How many charities where people won't donate money, but if they have some cool merch that you can buy, maybe they'll buy the t-shirt and you inadvertently get the money you needed for your charity. And so because of that, I spent a bunch of time after I thought the book was already done, and for all 100 use cases, what's the economic benefit to you, the person who's going to come do the thing? How is it going to make you more money, save you money, whatever, that kind of thing. And so I added that because I know that there's a chunk of people out there that won't do the right thing for the right reasons unless there's something in it for them. I know this sounds horrible to say, but it's just the world we live in.
Well, but even those that have the passion and have the motivation and inspiration, they still need money to do it, right?
That's true.
And so they can make some money to also accomplish what you're trying to do there.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's another great thing.
That's fair. So yes, each use case gets a big, giant, hunkin' paragraph that says this is how you're going to benefit financially or whatever from doing that. So there's that.
So let's not forget to ask, how do people get their hands on this book?
All right. So the book's launching at the end of this month. We're speaking right now in July of 2026. So, so August 1st, it'll be available on Amazon.
Yeah.
That's where it'll start off. And, I'll have a way. I know I've had people say, I want an autographed copy. So I'll make sure I grab copies to myself and they can.
You have people asking for autographs?
I have people. I can't believe it.
Wow.
So here's the other part. How do you make something popular big? How do I get on Good Morning America or on Oprah or something talking about this?
Yeah.
And it's, and so there's that whole other world of the marketing the book, right?
Yeah. You need to have, your rowing thing like the Norway soccer team. You need to have it, man. You got to come up with
some kind of thing.
Yeah. Texas, the lasso or something.
Yeah, all I've got so far is I have a hashtag IoT for number 4 SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. Like if you type hashtag SDG on Twitter or whatever, lots of stuff will come up.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm starting. I got IoT for SDGs. I'm going to have a website. There'll be IoTforSDGs.com. And, and obviously a lot of content marketing, which we all know well. I've got 100 use cases to talk about. If I talked about one a week, that's 100 weeks worth of content.
Oh, man.
That can trickle out there. But, it's kind of the name of the game, right?
Oh, absolutely. Since it is July 10, the day we're recording this in 2026, and the World Cup is going on, do you have a team that you are backing?
Have all my teams lost already? I guess I'm with France.
Okay. Well, they played very well yesterday.
They did. Yes. Too bad about the USA.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened.
So I just switch over to my team is Norway now. Who
they're
can't
awesome.
like Norway, right?
Who can't like Norway? Those guys are awesome. And you're right. They got the whole country rowing. And that's
the whole world rowing.
The whole row. And that's the kind of thing you need. How do you get viral and do something like that where everybody gets on board and they're all rowing in the same direction?
Yeah. I think you need to let your hair grow long, dye it long.
Yes. Like that guy. Yeah. That guy, he's good.
He is.
Yes.
Rob, I want to thank you so much. While just getting back from vacation, you gave us the time to share this. Best of luck with it. This is awesome. Guys, August 1 on Amazon. And what's the title of the book again?
Saving the Earth with the Internet of Things.
Rob, thank you so much for sharing this with us today.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's always fun to hang out with you.